Hi everyone and welcome to the Desteni I Process live Google Hangout. We do Hangouts here from this channel every Thursday, and we've actually changed the time for our Hangouts, so it's now at 7 p.m. UTC time. If you don't know when that is in your own time zone, you can look it up online, as well as follow us on Facebook. Just look for DIP Light and you'll find our Facebook page. Light, L-I-T-E is how it's spelled. In today's Hangout, we're going to start a new series, and it's actually going to be a little bit of a different series because we're not going to start a series of Hangouts as we've been doing that we're going to do every week. It's going to be more of a longer series that we're going to do every month or every couple of months. We haven't quite decided that yet, but we'll discuss that in a minute. As always, you're welcome to post questions and comments live here on the Hangout. If you're watching us live on YouTube, you can click on the corner, on the lower left corner where it says be part of the conversation, and from there you'll be taken to our Google Plus page, our event page, where you can post your question on your comment, and you can post your question or your comment, and we will give perspective on it live here in the Hangout. If you're watching the Hangout afterwards, after it's been recorded, you can place your comment or your question in the comment section on the YouTube video, or you can also post your question, email it to us at desteniiprocess@gmail.com. And for this Hangout and this series, we would very much like your comments and your questions in relation to the topic that we're going to be discussing. And the topic is relationships and successful relationship support. And to do that and to co-host this series, we've invited Cerise Pullman from South Africa. Hi, Cerise.
Hi.
And we're having a bit of a lag due to the fact that Cerise is in South Africa and I'm in Sweden. So please bear with us if we accidentally interrupt each other. We have to be quite timely with this lag. So Cerise, do you want to share with us what is this series going to be about?
Well, it's going to be about relationships, essentially, and the relationship construct. So what makes relationships the way they are in today's world? What are common problems that people face? What are common influencing factors for the way that a relationship turns out? We're going to be discussing as well starting new relationships and meeting new people and how you can move forward with that new relationship and develop a constructive and supportive relationship that you'd like to be in for the rest of your life, essentially.
So this series, would you say that it's specifically for single people who would like to start a relationship, or could it also be for people who are already in a relationship?
Absolutely, it's going to be for both. So if people are in a relationship that they just like to improve, or if they're in a relationship that's not doing so great that they'd like to try and rebuild and start from the beginning again and essentially give it a second chance, to put it that way.
All right, very cool. And could you share a little bit about your background and your experiences with relationships, and also why you've decided to do this series and walk this with us?
Well, I've been in a number of relationships, and the one that I'm in now, I've been in for about 8 or 9 years. So I've had personal experience in going through a relationship, going through the ups and downs, facing some common problems. But as well as that, I've had a relatively unusual life where I've learned how to read people and to see things quite clearly so that I can see other people's relationships and see what it was that led up to them being at the point that they're at. So, for example, if they're facing a particular conflict, it's not always just about that one, it's not just about that conflict that they're experiencing in that moment. It's about all of the moments that led up to that conflict. All of the thoughts, all of the behaviors, all of the words that were spoken that accumulated and compounded and resulted in a situation that two people find themselves in.
Yeah, I would also say that that is what is so tricky with relationships, that it's kind of this completely natural standard part of life. You know, it's something that is expected of you, and that people expect of themselves, that of course I'm going to go into a relationship. So it's very natural from that perspective. But then at the same time, we don't have any relationship courses in school. We don't have any communication skills courses in school. You know, mostly we learn from watching our parents or watching other people, and then kind of step into it with the expectation that often, or at least that's what I've seen, that this experience of love itself is what's going to carry the relationship. And then a lot of people get into trouble because it is actually not necessarily that easy. So what would you say, why is it that relationships can be so difficult and so complicated for many people?
Okay, so aside from the reason that, yes, people are not always aware of all of the points that have contributed to them being at the place that they're at in that moment, um, like you said, there is no teach, there's no course, there's no education about it. The only places where people are learning about relationships, as you said, is from families and from the media, for example. And I mean, if you look at movies today and music and everything, it's all about sex or romance, and that is not really what relationships are about. You cannot sustain a relationship just on those very limited aspects. Relationships are much deeper. They require a level of openness, of communication, of hard work, and a willingness to put in that work and work on yourself and be open to hearing suggestions from your partner, and to be open to bettering yourself and changing yourself, because a lot of people are not willing to do that. They want to stay the way they are, even though they know deep inside themselves that if they were to put in the effort and make some changes, they could actually improve their lives and improve their experiences, and essentially as well improve their relationships. So um, aside from that aspect, then I'm going to bring in again the point of um, where we don't see all of the moments that led up to the moment that you're in now. When you're in a fight with your partner, you tend to just be focused on that fight. You're just focused on that anger you're experiencing, and you don't stop to think, wait, where is this coming from? Can I just stop for a moment, breathe, relax, figure out exactly what's happening? Where's my partner coming from? Where am I coming from? What's led us to this moment, and how can we solve it, find a solution, and move forward constructively and support each other? So there's also, it's like people get stuck in these experiences, in the emotions, and they don't stop for a moment to look at how they can move out of it and build the relationship from that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I can absolutely relate to that. With my experiences with, I've had quite a few long-term relationships before the relationship that I'm in now, and what I tended to do, and that I also see that many other people tend to do, is that you think that when it's not working, when it's not effective, it must be the relationship itself that is wrong, like the match between yourself and your partner, or even go as far as thinking that it's my partner that is wrong, or my partner is wrong for me. And so what I would do, which often would be very early into the relationship, would be to simply give up on it, and say, okay, but we're fighting, or this is boring, or this is just not working. So I have to find someone else. And I actually thought for many years that a successful relationship, and even myself within it, like am I going to be in the relationship, was dependent on finding the right partner. So I thought that if I could only find, it was like I saw this magical partner in my mind that would be like a key, or an antidote in a way, or the way that my partner would match with me would kind of magically make me, you know, become this um, person that wouldn't have any conflict, this gracious person that could just harmoniously live with another person. And it took quite a lot of relationships where I kept thinking that every time I went out of them and into a new relationship, until I realized, hey, this is just repeating itself over and over. So maybe it's me, or you know, that because in the first few relationships I didn't see that it was actually a pattern, and that I was actually the common denominator in those patterns, at least to a certain extent. Is this something that you've seen as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the trap of fairy tales that people fall into, thinking that they're going to live magically, happily ever after, just if they find their one true love. And I mean, that's just, it's a fairy tale that's been sold to us, and we buy it. So it's absolutely contrary to reality. That's not the way relationships can actually work. I mean, when you look at how people tend to start a relationship, you'll start when you meet someone and you experience a spark or a connection. And you don't normally understand why you have that spark, why that connection is there. And when you look into it, you'll realize that you feel this connection with this person because you see something within them that you'd like to express or develop within yourself. And what generally tends to be the case is you enjoy being around this person because when you're with this person, you access that part of yourself that you otherwise feel you can't access. So, say you are normally shy and you meet someone with whom you feel confident, and when you're with them, you feel like you're brave, you're confident, you can do anything you want, and you tend to think that it's the person that you're attracted to, but it's actually you're drawn to this person because of their presence giving you that access to yourself. And I mean, the solution to that is to realize what it is that you are lacking within yourself and how you can develop that without then creating some connection and a big thing with some other person that is based on, for lack of a better word, based on this illusion of attraction and illusion of a spark. Because what tends to happen in those relationships is later on down the line, you've fallen in love and you've been together for a long time. Eventually, that spark goes out because you no longer need that person to access that part of yourself. Either you've now just become used to it and it's become a natural part of you. Whatever the reason, the spark goes out, the connection's not there anymore. And then people think, wait, now, what is this relationship about? I have no reason to be in this relationship anymore. I don't feel the love, as if that point, that connection was all that held it together. And I mean, if you look at the high rates of divorce and how essentially short and superficial relationships are these days, people don't understand that a relationship is not about that spark. That spark is just an illusion. It's just a part of yourself that you're seeing in someone else and not realizing. And because of that, people don't know how to build relationships because everyone thinks that it's about that spark, it's about the love, but it's so much more than that.
Right. And what I've also found in relation to this point is that I would even want to create a relationships based on ideas. For example, having an idea of a man in a particular job, or even it could even be with a particular look or a particular expression, where there might not even be that experience of a spark, but where it's purely based on an image of how I would like my life to be, where it's kind of like when you go shopping for new clothes and you're like, does that fit my style? And we even do the same with relationships. And that, when we do that, that is where we tend to end up very disappointed, because it's like we're looking for this image, and then when you actually go into a relationship with someone, you know, it's a real life human being, and they are not just that image. They come with a whole, like a whole universe, a whole world of all kinds of things and all kinds of dimensions. Did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I'll just add that that's another dimension of the whole fairy tale thing where people daydream about what they want to do and who they want to be when they grow up. And you know, when you get there, you realize it doesn't work that way. But most of the time, you hold on to that dream and you kind of keep deluding yourself, if I can put it that way, into thinking that
Absolutely.
maybe the next person will be the one.
Right.
So it's it's a big issue in our society.
Yeah, for sure. Cerise, we've been getting a few comments that your volume is very low, which in turn makes my volume very high because people then have to turn up their volume to be able to hear you. I've tried lowering my volume now, so I hope that it works better now. Unfortunately, I don't think we can turn up Cerise's volume, so I'll have to see if I can turn my volume down. I apologize for that, and I hope that that you guys can still hear us well enough. We have a comment from Ram, and he's saying, I still love a girl, but she does not talk to me. So, do you have any perspective on that, Cerise?
Well, this is quite a tough one since we don't really know much of the context to it. But generally, the word love already indicates that we're participating in the fairy tale. We're participating in the system of that spark where you see something in that other person or where they fit some ideal that you have. And obviously, as we've been discussing, that is just, it's just a fairy tale. And from that, you can actually look at yourself and see what it is in that person that you are connecting to and develop, find a way to give it to yourself, essentially. Find a way to develop, if it's something that you see in them, find a way to develop that something within yourself without needing to depend on someone else. Um, or if it's some ideal that you have about what your partner should be like, then that's a flag for yourself where you can say, okay, I still have ideas about what I want in a partner. And then you can basically work towards letting those ideas go and keep your relationship plans to practical, you know, finding a partner who has potential that you two can spend the rest of your lives together and develop clear communication, clear channels of support, um, uh, deep levels of intimacy, and essentially create a real relationship that's not based on energy experiences and positive experiences and obviously the polarity, the negative experiences that will inevitably go with that.
Yeah, and Ram, if you do want to ask a bit more, a longer question or expand a bit more, you're welcome to send your question to destiniiprocess@gmail.com, and then we can forward your question to Cerise, and we can actually bring it up and discuss it in more detail in an upcoming hangout. Cerise, I want to ask you, when you talk about the relationship construct and it being such a big point and being so influential in people's life, what is it that, what does that mean?
Well, it's in our DNA to be with other people. So we are drawn towards developing relationships, to developing friendships, and being around other people like our family. So in that respect, we all feel the need to be around people. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspects are that relationships are not just about you and someone else. When you're with someone, especially if you're with them for a long time, you're going to be facing parts of yourself that you wouldn't otherwise face. So this person is going to be bringing out deeper aspects of you that sometimes you don't want to see. I mean, I'm sure everyone has experienced that, where you're with someone and they push your buttons and they rub you the wrong way, or they bring out a part of you, a side of you that you are not normally, that you don't normally show. And I mean, that is twofold. It's a gift where this person is showing you what you can still improve within yourself, what within yourself you still need to work on, as well as obviously being a challenge, because in this world no one teaches us how to deal with these things. So a lot of people are on their own. They're trying to figure this out for themselves, and I mean, it is hard. It's a difficult point to work through, and in a way, I'd say it goes against our nature, but it's not really our nature. It's just our programmed nature, our designed nature.
So how do you mean our designed nature or our programmed nature in this context?
Okay, let me give you some examples of, I'm going to take the male and female genders and give you some typical examples of, for example, a female pre-programmed design would be to place themselves in an inferior position to their partner. This is obviously throughout time, women have always taken an inferior role, and only now it's becoming more of a role of equality. But still, that tendency to become, to feel and see themselves as inferior still exists, as well as the opposite, the male partner tending to feel themselves as superior. Now, what a woman sometimes does when she feels inferior to her partner is she tries to balance out the power by using things like manipulation, for example, to try and get some power in relationship, to build a sense of equality, but it's not really equality. It's essentially just a power game of who's bigger than the other one. And an example of a pre-programmed design for men would be that tendency for men to find it difficult to share themselves and communicate with their partners and with other people in their lives. So I'd like to also add that we'll be covering these topics in future sessions, and that we'll be going over where these pre-programmed designs came from, helping you to understand how they work, and obviously through that the partner will then also come from a position of understanding, and through that each will be able to support themselves and each other in moving through this. And basically, for example, in the men's lack of communication, to then they could support each other to build a platform of communication and develop an intimacy in that sense.
Yeah, that is very cool, and it is very needed, because we can see, and also when we say that it is pre-programmed, it means that it was already here, and that we didn't have a choice. You know, we're being conditioned from the moment that we're born, basically. And so, because no one has learned to be effective in relationships, we perpetuate and we recreate the same dysfunctional cycles, the same dysfunctional behaviors generation after generation, because the only point of reference that we have is our parents. And so, and that's like another point of why it then is so difficult, that it's not just a relationship. You know, that is like the baggage that we often talk about, that we carry with us, that we will relive the same, for example, like you were talking about, this inferiority construct, that maybe we saw our mother living out that exact same construct, and without even being aware of it, we take that on for ourselves. And because there's no intervention, there's no one coming to us in school and saying, okay, let's talk about relationships. What does that mean? So that becomes our only reference, and without being aware of it, that will be what we will live as in our relationships.
Yeah.
We have a question from Valentine, and it's kind of related to the same point. And he's saying, I noticed that there's a lot of pretending in relationships, where people want to be likable, and only after some period of engaging in the relationship, they show their true face. Have you had any similar experiences?
This is a very common thing in today's world, sadly. Um, it connects in with what we were discussing earlier about the ideas we create about our partners, but also the ideas we create about ourselves and the impressions that we want to give to other people. So let's take an example of a woman. She wants a particular type of man, and her belief is that she needs to be a certain way in order to get the attention of that man, in order to create the opportunity to develop a relationship. So that would be one reason that she would then put on a different face, so to speak, and only after time show her true self. But this also ties in with, it's essentially what everyone does all the time. I mean, this life has become incredibly superficial. Um, People hardly ever show their true faces, and in that respect, it's pretty much that's what you should just be expecting when you're meeting people, is obviously with a few exceptions, is that they're going to be pretending to be something else, because that ties in with their self-image, it ties in with their ideas and beliefs about what other people are going to be thinking about them, it ties in with their ideas and beliefs of what they should be like. And I say that this is something that really holds people back, because I mean, you never give yourself the opportunity to really find out who you are. And when you're developing a new relationship, if you're coming from that starting point of not being completely honest, you're not giving the other person the opportunity to really, for you two to come together and develop a relationship that is going to stand the test of time, because you're starting it from a point of dishonesty, even though most people in this world are not doing it intentionally. It's just how it's how everyone else does it. It's how it is on TV and in movies and in magazines. I mean, it's just thrown in our faces the whole time. It's like drugs being pumped into us the whole time. Well, this is what you should be like. This is what life is like. This is how relationships work. If you want this kind of person to like you, you need to be this way and look that way and act that way. So yeah, that basically is tying into the family, society, media, that whole thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because then you will have that thought that if I have had this thought, that's why I'm saying it. If I were to show this person who I really am, they wouldn't want me, okay? So I have to put on my best face, not be conflictual. As a woman, it also has a lot to do with the looks. You don't want to fart. There are even written books about this, the etiquette, and it's like you become this completely stiff little doll for the woman, but it's actually rather absurd, because you're actually looking to create a real, like you were saying, a real relationship that can stand the test of time. But you think that to have to do that, you have to be fake, and then it's kind of like, then they will be stuck with me. Like once they get to find out who I really am, it's like hopefully they'll be stuck with me, or we'll have a baby, and then they can't get rid of me. I mean, that is literally, of course, we don't, like you say, we don't consciously think these thoughts, but if we look self-honestly at what's going on in our minds when we're in that whole mating process, that's actually what we think. It's actually very strategical, and that's also what you were saying in your question, Valentine, in terms of how people will manipulate each other. And something I've experienced when starting new relationships, which also ties together with the whole falling in love experience, and like I was talking about before, that it feels like, oh my God, I can be myself with this person, and they're so amazing, and they're bringing out the best qualities in me. And I've several times I've thought that, like, oh my God, like they can do this to me so that I'm now this harmonious, amazing, creative person, for example. And then slowly but surely,
Yeah, exactly.
the truth is gonna start coming out. The anger comes out, or the jealousy, or the pettiness, and it's like, oh shit, I thought I'd gotten out of it. So in a way, it's actually an attempt also of taking a shortcut to get rid of those parts and aspects of ourselves that we don't want to admit and that we don't want to face. And like you were saying, Cerise, that is actually one of the most amazing gifts of a relationship, is that those parts can come out. But when we don't have any tools to deal with that in an effective way, it's going to be like a war zone.
Absolutely.
So we're about to finish off the hangout in a few minutes, but I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, so now that we've shared about the relationship construct, and of course I'm sure many people can relate to what we're describing, and in terms of how influential relationships are in our lives, and also how little we actually know about how to make them effective. So what are the topics that we're going to be discussing in this Hangout series that you've been looking at would be supportive for people who are single, for example, and want to stop this cycle of dysfunctional relationships, or who are already in a relationship and would like to improve it and make it successful and effective?
Okay, so one of the points that we've already mentioned is the points of pre-programmed designs. Let's call them pre-programmed design flaws, which is, for example, the inferiority for women and the lack of communication for men. Then another point will be we'll be looking at developing a platform of support in an already existing relationship. And obviously this will be extremely useful to someone who's looking to create a new relationship with someone who is currently single. So we'll be going into um, basically how you can support yourself within the relationship and how you can support your partner. Um, so for example, we'll be looking at behaviors and patterns that are very common in relationships and that very commonly cause a lot of conflict, and often as well the end of a relationship will be getting stuck in reactions and emotional reactions, and like for example getting stuck in the same fights and just reliving the thing over and over again and feeling like nothing is ever changing. So we're going to be looking at that aspect, as well as some others. We're going to be going through points that you can flag for yourself so that you can know, okay, I need to stop, breathe, I'm in a reaction, let it go, settle down before you actually carry on communicating with your partner, because often the problems start when you are communicating coming from a point of reaction, when you're in the height of anger or jealousy or whatever it is. You're going to be saying things and doing things that are going to be detrimental to the relationship. Um, we're going to be looking at what is self-honesty versus what is honesty in a relationship. So, for example, I'm just going into this briefly. Honesty would be just saying anything that comes into your head with the belief that you're being honest by just expressing yourself all the time, no holds barred, versus self-honesty, which is where you not only are considering what it is that you're experiencing, but you're considering what it is that your partner is experiencing, where they're coming from, um, the kinds of words that they're going to be able to understand. Um, you're going to have to look at, essentially placing yourself in their shoes in order to assess what the most effective way to express yourself is going to be. Okay. Um, Another topic that's going to relate big on the reaction point is is doing the same thing over and over again, where you're stuck in the past, where every day you're living a memory of what your partner did before, and you're holding on to this memory, and you want the relationship to work, but every time you want to, for example, go and talk to your partner or whatever, this memory comes up and you can't get past it, and you're stuck in the past. And the problem with this is that it's not only holding you in the past, it's holding your partner in the past as well. You're not giving them the opportunity to support themselves, to change themselves, because
Right.
you're imposing your belief upon them. Um,
You
so
know,
that is, I think, going to be an interesting one.
my partner and I, we've laughed about that particular pattern, because, or it actually might be a little bit different, but it's the same, where particularly women will remember things that were done in the past. And we've joked around about it, and we say that I have this little black book where I write things up, that I remember. You said that last Saturday. So that's what you're going to do again, exactly as you say, where you can actually hold each other in ineffective patterns by saying that is what it is, that is what you do, not realizing that we're actually creating something that we don't even want, that is not even supportive for us.
Yeah.
So we're also going to be looking at, in relation to you mentioned the pre-programmed patterns, then this point of where it is that we create our relationships from. Like, where does it all start?
Yes, we will be going into that. Essentially, I want to cover every aspect of relationships, um, and every experience that one could possibly have, in the start, in the middle, in the end, the whole shebang. So
Perfect.
that's why we really appreciate input from the viewers to get some more ideas, because obviously each person experiences something different. So the more input we get, the more comprehensive we can make the series.
Absolutely. And the point is also, which I would say is the whole point of why we're doing this, is exactly as we've been saying, that there is no instruction manual, there is no course, there is no relationship training courses that you can go to, or there might be, but not in the context that we're talking about it here, where you really go into the deep nitty-gritty mechanics, mechanisms of what a relationship consists of. And to also then here share that we're not here as experts, with super long degrees in relationship counseling, for example, that we're actually here sharing ourselves based on what we've walked and what we have seen worked for ourselves, and that is what we should do, so that you also can come and share what has worked for you, and tips and suggestions that you have from your relationships, as well as the questions that will also assist us in seeing what are some of the topics that will be relevant and important for people to answer, because I'm sure that many of us have a lot of unanswered questions about relationships that we don't really know where to take. We don't know who to ask about it. So that's what I like about this, is that it's like a process that we're working together.
Yeah.
So, Cerise, as far as we've agreed right now, we will be doing the next hangout maybe in a month or maybe in 2 months. So shall we say that it's simply a point of keeping an eye out for when we will be doing the next hangout? Because we haven't really agreed on a specific date yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think at this point, because it's also going to depend on the regular DIP Light Hangouts. So for now, let's carry on going as we're going, and then maybe as we gather some momentum, we can create a better structure. But for now, I'm quite satisfied to do the next one in the next available slot, which I think is the beginning of January.
Yes. So basically, we suggest that you keep an eye on this space on the Destini I Process YouTube channel. We're going to create a playlist series as we do for all our Hangout series, so that you can go and just look at the playlist and see if there is a new interview, or sorry, a new Hangout in this series. Or if you want to have the update so that you can watch the Hangout live, you can go to our Facebook page, which is DIP Lite. You'll be able to see the link, all the links in the description of the video after it's uploaded on YouTube. And then we will simply be back. And we're actually going to start next week. We're going to start a series of Hangouts that's going to focus on family. And this will be anything and everything that has to do with family. So in a way, you can say it ties very well together with the relationship point. But we also see that this, as we've been talking about today, the relationship point is so big, and it's so influential, and it's so important that, you know, we cannot just rush through it and take these shortcuts. We actually, like you were saying, Cerise, we have to cover all of it, the whole shebang. So that's why I also see that it's cool that we take the time needed to do these Hangouts when there is time for it. And then in the meantime, we're going to be working this series about family. So that will be about parenting relationships, sibling relationships. It can even be about grandparent relationships, relationships to brothers and sisters, your role in the family. Anyone has maybe experienced being the black sheep, for example, or being the little cute baby that everyone just cuddles with. All these various dimensions and conflicts that can be related to family. So we'll be having Destonians, Destini participants come and share the process that they've walked in relation to changing their family relationships. That's going to be very interesting. We have a last comment here from Malin before we finish for today. And she says, awesome introduction to this vast topic. Thank you, guys. Looking forward to the next conversation on this topic. And it would be awesome to also get a male's perspective. So maybe we can look into having a male participating as well.
Yes, I think that is a good idea.
Okay, so we will look into that, and we will definitely see if we can get a male on. Maybe when we talk about this, the male pre-programming, it would be great to have like a panel of guys.
Yeah.
All right, Cerise, thank you so much for being here, and we will be back. So watch this space and follow us on Facebook so that you can see when the next Hangout will be. Thank you for now. Bye.
Thanks, Anna. Bye.